Hey Port fans, after what can only really be described as an arm wrestle of a game, our girls went down to the Geelong Cats by 5 points after what can really much pretty only described as an absolute total robbery of a goal near the end of the game, which in which Amelia Borg was played as a deliberate out of bounds when she clearly was trying to keep the ball in play. I do not know how the umpire remotely thought that was deliberate, but you can't argue with the umpires in this sport. I know, I am one. But regardless of that, there's more to the game than the last few minutes. And as much as I'd like to think this is a game we should have won had the call not gone that way, there was arguably areas where we were really very poor. And in some ways, the Cats should have probably won by a lot more. Let's just say it. Once again, our girls started really poor. The Cats frequently found themselves getting into space, especially inside 50. They got a lot of marks, within about 30 metres. Thankfully, they weren't able to convert them the best, which is what sort of kept us in the game. But we went scoreless the first quarter. We didn't score a thing. Thankfully, we did actually obviously fight back in the second quarter and actually were leading at the end at half time, and also quite often into the third quarter. We were getting up there when we had the win to our advantage. But once again, we have this really. I didn't notice this until until the commentators mentioned it, but we have the worst disposal efficiency in the AFLW, and you only take a little look at our girls constantly kicking the ball to space and handballing it to space and dropping handball receives and stuff to see that this is we are just not playing this sort of play style we went with of kicking the ball to space to our advantage and just rushing it forwards might have worked a few years ago, but if you're watching any other team in the AFLW at the moment, they are, meeting parity with the men's when it comes to, kicks into marks and handballs into handball receives. I am getting very worried that we are a team out of time here and not really getting to the time. I know it's also in our 1v1s. There was often times where we would do 1v1, and not only would the Geelong player out-muscle us, they would get the mark. You think, two players are tussling it against each other, the ball just spilled ground. No, they got a mark on us. We never do that. We never seem to be able to get into a 1v1 fight and then mark the ball out of that. But a lot of other teams can, and this is definitely getting very concerning that, sure, we can bring the pressure, and once again we did, in the later quarters, bring the pressure and, we're able to shut down the Cats and so forth. But when we can't dispose the ball, we can't abuse their mistakes, we're not going to win these games. Another thing we're also missing is a solid ball magnet. Just watching the game, I was watching, obviously, Georgie Prasparkas for the Geelong Cats just frequently get the ball and clear from the stoppage. And we just do not have a player like that. Dowrick's good, but she's not like Prasparkas level good. And it's just concerning that, we don't really have this one reliable midfielder who can help get the ball moving. Although with that being said, we did have, obviously, our own superstar in the field today, in Lauren Young, who obviously, being her first game in, was not going to be the amazing superhuman that we keep hyping her up to be. Obviously, this was the first game, and I think she did all right. I've talked a little bit how we can't seem to mark these one-on-one contests. She did actually have, I think, one decently difficult mark, and I think she had two. And she was obviously doing well in the game, and she actually ended up with 53 AFLW fantasy points, which is pretty damn good for a first-time player. So I think she's got a really good season ahead of her come Adelaide against the Gym when she's warmed up. But on the other hand, I do want to have put a bit of a spotlight on Houghton. Obviously, when we have limited inside 50s, it becomes very key that our inside 50 players mark the ball. And Houghton, she dropped so many marks. And this isn't the first time. She's done this several weeks in a row, just dropping, I'm not saying our players weren't the best at kicking the ball inside 50, but I'm generally getting very concerned that she's been unable to mark. And there was another time, I think, when she was trying to do a defensive mark, help catch a mark out coming out of defensive 50, and she also dropped that. I just remember her last year, especially in that semi-final, just marking balls like no tomorrow and then breaking out of tackles and stuff like that. And I'm worried I haven't really seen a lot of it this year, and I'm getting a little bit concerned that maybe she's under too much pressure. Hopefully, if Teakle can get back into the side, maybe that might free up Houghton to bring her back to her amazing performances that she had last year. But otherwise, that I'm definitely getting a little bit concerned. But on the other hand, to try and stay on the positive side of things, I was really impressed with how Pope played today, especially when our team was really down and like Geelong was getting control of the ball. Pope was really willing herself to get to the ball, grab the ball and just run out. Like, there was a few times where she was really moving the ball forward. I think one time she was trying so hard she didn't realize the Geelong player was coming up behind her and got tackled. But regardless, I was really happy with the effort Pope did, and I think she was one of the reasons we were able to get momentum back on our side throughout the game. Alongside Pope, I also want to give a shout out to O'Day in defence, along with Brooksby, who I think both did a good job. Is one of the reasons why Geelong wasn't able to was kept to a reasonably low score, was partly their amazing work. Brooksby's done some pretty good intercept marking. I was going to mention her last week, but accidentally forgot. But yeah, she's definitely been a great role in key defence. However, regardless of keeping Geelong to a low score, they did in fact win, even if it was off an absolute bogus umpire call. And now, unfortunately, we look down the barrel of a season in which we probably need to win arguably every single game to the end of this year if we want to even have a hope of playing finals, which is daunting because we still have Brisbane, Adelaide and Hawthorn coming up. But at least we might potentially have a winnable game next week, which, on that topic, obviously both the girls and myself will be heading to Melbourne next week for our Round 7 clash at Moorabbin against the Saints. Obviously, being the first game I will be attending this year, I am really excited to see our girls in action live on the boundary. And alongside that, we might possibly have Piper Window joining the team next week, and possibly Teakle, although seeing as she's gone from 1 week to a TBC, I'm a little worried that Teakle might be having issues with her recovery, and a little bit concerned she might not be playing this year. So fingers crossed we get a bit more of a clearer idea of what's happening with her when the injury report comes out on Tuesday. But regardless of who's going to be showing up next week, obviously I will be there on the boundary and I will be there to shout, "Let's go, Power!"